This is the plaintiff, Patrick Quinn. He says he contacted the defendant to fix his central air conditioning system, and he replaced his condenser at a cost of $950. Once that job was done, he noticed the air wouldn't shut off when the room got down to temperature, and it just kept running. After a few months of back and forth with the defendant, the problem was finally discovered, but his electric bills skyrocketed during this ordeal, and he feels the defendant should pay the extra $1,500 he had to spend on energy bills. So he's suing. This is the defendant, Osmond Kamak. He says he fixed the guy's air conditioning unit and he complained it wasn't shutting off, so he went back to check on things. He told the plaintiff his heater wasn't working properly, and both units were working and competing with one another. The plaintiff failed to get his heating system fixed for a few months, and he should pay for the higher energy bills? He thinks not. He's accused of letting things get too cold.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
Yes.
The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Millian now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Quinn, you're suing Constant Cooling Incorporated, represented here by Mr. Kamak. Kamak. For $1,500 because your electric bill really went up after he did a repair in your house, and you feel that it has something to do with their repair. Tell me what happened.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, I originally contacted Mr. Kamak to fix my AC unit.
What was wrong with your AC unit?
The condenser had frozen over.
Okay,
So,
so it wouldn't even turn on?
Correct.
How long had it been that way?
So it had probably been that way maybe like 2 or 3 days. I had some company over. I noticed that as I was trying to cool the unit, the place down, that it was not getting cold.
You're where? You're in Fort Lauderdale?
Coral Springs.
Coral Springs, which is really hot.
Well, yes, having AC on is very important.
No, yeah, that's why I'm surprised you waited so long. So you notice it after a call. So you call him, and then he goes there how many days? How many days were you without AC?
Well, no, the AC was not out permanently. So he probably came over within about 3 days based upon his schedule.
All right, so the AC was not, so it would turn on?
It would turn on, but it just wasn't getting cold.
It wasn't getting cold.
Correct. So I contacted him, let him know my place isn't getting cold. It looks like the condenser was frozen. So
had you ever used them before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. How many times?
Maybe at least 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Does he come over or somebody else comes over?
So the initial visit was one of his employees. I believe he had 2 of his staff members come by.
Okay.
Yes.
And what did they do?
So they came by, they evaluated the unit. They let me know that it looked like there was a motor unit that needed to be replaced. So in doing that, they had a part they had to order. So he had to come back. So his staff came back again. And this required them to actually physically maneuver the unit to actually replace the motor unit.
What does physically maneuver mean?
Well, because the actual AC unit is inside of a closet inside of my condo.
Right.
Because inside of a condo, inside the closet, the motor unit, I guess the place of it is something that had to fit. They had to physically move the unit. So
how far did they physically move the unit?
I was not standing over their shoulder while they were doing it.
But did they take it completely out of the closet?
I believe they had to move it out of the closet.
No, I'm asking you if you saw that they did that.
I did not see them do that, no.
Okay, but in any event, you then come, correct?
Correct.
And what do you see?
Well, my technicians went out there first. And then when they went out there, they told me that this unit is very difficult. This motor is very difficult to come out because it was installed improperly. The unit was installed improperly.
How so?
Because the door frame is here, and the top of the unit was here, above
so
the door frame.
What should they have done?
They should have installed at least 8 inches lower so it clears the doorway. So if you have to work on the unit, it's easily you take out the 4 screws in the
Why didn't they, though? Why is it elevated?
Because they had some shabby work done.
All right, so what did you do?
So my technicians, I had 2 technicians who went out there, they told me they couldn't do it because it was very difficult to get to. So therefore, I had to schedule to go out there with Mr. Quinn to go ahead on.
What day did you go out there?
I'd have to check on the texts and stuff.
Please do that.
Okay.
According to you, he goes out there what day?
June 14th, Your Honor.
Does that sound right?
Yes, it was around.
All right, so you go out there June 14th, and then what happens?
Went out there June 14th. I went out there with another one of my technicians, and it took us a very long time to do it because it was so difficult. We basically had to have the phone up there because we couldn't get our head up above
Right.
the door trim to see it. So we had to put the phone on camera so it could view the screws and reach up over to try to take the screws out.
Right.
So that's how we were able to get it out. And once we got it out, we turned it sideways and we were able to slide it out. And the same
Okay,
thing
so then you eventually did get the entire AC unit out of there.
not the AC unit, just the motor assembly.
Just the motor. All right. And-
Because to take the whole unit out is a big job, which would have cost a lot more money.
Okay, so the motor you were changing was what motor?
It was the evaporator motor.
The evaporator. So you put in the new evaporator, screw it all in, with the camera and the angles and trying to get it in there.
Exactly.
And then he pays you, and then what happens?
All right, so the apartment seemed to be getting cooler. What I let him know is that later that evening, I set the thermostat to a specific temperature. I believe it was like 80 degrees. And I noticed,
80?
Well, yeah.
Oh, was it hotter than that in there?
Well, yeah, I just set it to 80, and I was noticing that it was not coming down. So I may have set it down to maybe 78, but the temperature was not coming down. So he told me, well, Patrick, you got to wait. It takes a while for the whole place to cool down. Give it a few hours. As a matter of fact, just contact me the next day. Let me know. So I said, okay. I communicated with him the next day, let him know that the thermostat was still set at the same 78 degrees, but the temperature still did not come down. And it was overnight, and I understand it's hot in South Florida, but I didn't believe it was that hot overnight.
Right.
So I expressed my concern about that. I believe I reached out to him again to follow up and say, well, there was a second day, but the thermostat was still, the temperature was not matching the thermostat. Because I always leave my thermostat on automatic so that it can go and get to the temperature I'm more likely to get to, and then it shuts off.
And then it shuts off automatically.
And unfortunately, it had not done that for several days.
So it's just running, and it's not
Correct.
cooling.
This
So what do you do?
Well, so after that, then I believe it had been a couple of weeks because when this had happened, I had the trip to go out of town.
Okay.
So I left town for about a week or so, came back and noticed it was still the same issue. I contacted him again, so this is by July now. I had contacted Mr. Comic again to say, hey, I'm still having the same issue. What can we do? He let me know he's going to send a guy out. So one of his technicians came out. When they saw the unit, they ended up getting up on the roof. They've got a chance to see the outside unit. They determined that there was some Freon that was a problem that was missing, so they added Freon. Then he also went inside, and I believe they did some adjustment to, I guess, what they call boosting the motor or boosting the system so they could blow harder. So the unit got colder. My main concern was that I never really complained about it being cold. I just complained that my unit was not shutting off in automatic and I had no idea why I was not doing that.
Okay.
So after the guy left, yes, it was colder, but I texted him again two days following. My unit still was not shutting off, even on auto, and I had no idea why.
Okay.
And he did not know why, but that was the last time I saw him, probably until...
Wait, did you ask him to come back and take a look at it?
Well, I just asked him, why is this going on?
And what did he say?
He did not have an answer for it. He just said that, well, this is the summertime and it's hot, so this is what normally happens. That still seems strange to me.
How much later did you call him again?
I have the text correspondence.
There's a big chunk of missing time, like where you have no, how long is
Correct.
that time?
Between the first visit and the second visit, it was probably about 2 weeks, and that was, like I said, because I was out of town. After that, I did not hear back from him.
In July, the last time you spoke to him was when?
July 22nd.
July 22nd, who reaches out to who?
I reached out to him. I texted him several times. Say, hey, Osmond, the thermostat, room temperature won't go below 80 degrees. I set it to 71 at around 8:30 last night. Woke up at 8 a.m. It was still at 81 degrees.
And
That
what's
was July 2nd.
what's he say to you?
He's no response.
Okay,
The
hold
next
on.
time I reached out to him was because I got communication. I got a call, then an email from Florida Power and Light to let me know my energy bill was way above normal. And they showed me that the bill was $677 during that billing cycle. So I had texted him on August 3rd.
What is it normally?
My bill has never been above $110.
Wow.
It's a 2-bedroom condo.
No, I know, but the FPL's, pumped its rates up too.
I
But
don't think they pumped it up that much, though.
so he comes back in, and what does he do? What did FPL come in and do? Did you ask FPL to come on in and do it? All
Yeah,
right.
so they
When
do
does
it-
FPL do that?
They do a survey. Believe they had a person come out. They actually scheduled for August 7th.
Okay, so on August 7th, FPL comes out there and they give you their report when?
That same day.
That same day, and they tell you what?
The gentleman sent an email. I actually have the email. I'll read it to you. You mind if I read it to you? He says that FPL hopes the information. No. Says 2.5 ton AC with heat strip running the same time as the AC pulling over 7,000 watts. Advised to repair or disconnect the heat strips. In the air handler, also AC is not cooling properly and may need Freon as well.
So do you communicate this to the defendant?
I shared all this information. I shared the email. I shared the email that came from the FPL staff member with him. I also shared with him the.
So he comes back to the condo.
Yes.
And what's he do?
Well, he said, I believe he ended up dismantling the heat strips. He said,
Okay. What are the heat strips? Talk to me about that.
The heat strips is located in the upper portion of the air handler unit, and basically, whenever you call for heat, you turn it to heat. The heat strips come on, and the blower blows off the heat from the heat strips.
Okay. And he says you disconnected the heat strips.
Correct.
Because they were malfunctioning according to FPL.
Correct.
Is there anything you guys could have done when you were doing the repair that would have caused the heat strips to malfunction?
None whatsoever. It's not even.
Here's where the problem lies, and here's what he's so upset about. You ended up getting a document from FPL. Can I see that document? That tells you when your costs went up day by day, right?
Yes.
So basically, we've got this happening, okay? And this starts on the day you get there, and this ends when he hears from FPL. We've got this crazy thing going on here. So that's his evidence. Judge, I can't prove it. I'm not an AC guy, but for the love of God, look at the evidence. The evidence shows that on the day they leave, this starts happening. This has to be something they did. Convince me that this shouldn't convince me.
How I'm going to convince you is by telling you the same time, whatever damaged the motor, whether the power surge or something, it also damaged the heat strip. So when we replaced the motor, that's when he started to use the unit again. Because when we got there, the unit was off the entire time. So when the unit was fixed is when the unit started to be used again. So, and that was within that time span.
Okay, so then what say you to what I imagine he'd say next, which is, well, you're the expert. Why didn't you, when I asked you to come evaluate my AC, why didn't you notice that this wasn't working?
Because normally this is not the first time I've dealt with this situations plenty of times. And what happens is that the customer will call me and say, listen, the FPL gave me a call and told me there's an increase in my light bill. Can you please come out and assess the AC unit? Or they said that it might be the heater that's the problem. Can you please tell me what I need to do? And at that point, I go out and then I check out the heater and I'll let them know, yes, you do have a problem with the heater.
When you went over there, was the heater running?
I did not check the heater.
You just disconnected the heat strips. Now, you had the heat strips reconnected by a different company, right?
Correct.
What was wrong with the heat strips?
The gentleman, I couldn't tell you specifically. Once again, this is not my wheelhouse. So I just know that the gentleman came by. He spent about 2 to 3 hours in the unit and just reconnected it. And
right,
and
on his bill, what he says is, I have no idea what went wrong because these are working fine.
Correct.
Bizarre, right?
Very strange to me.
Right. So did you put your hand up, or like, how would you test whether the heat strips are working?
You have to use your electric meter, and you could test the components on the heater to see if it's working.
And that's not something you did?
No, because you can't get up there to test it because you can't access
So
it.
I presume then FPL did that.
No, they didn't.
So how did they conclude that the heat strips are on?
Because that's what they automatically assume. That's why they told them that you should have the AC checked and have the heater disconnected. They automatically guess, because a lot of the times FPL, they're not technicians. So they know normally when something like this happens, they tell you two things: have the unit checked and have your heater checked or disconnected.
So he's given me, and I want to hear your response, an explanation for why this shouldn't persuade me it's anything he did. He's saying to me, whatever killed your AC made that malfunction too. I didn't do anything. That's in a separate part. It's not where I'm working here. And I don't even know, Judge, if FPL is right about that. I think they're guessing. But I am a little worried that your new AC guy plugs it back in and says there's nothing wrong with it. I don't know what's happening. So under these circumstances, how do I hold him responsible? I mean, I hear you, and I know you feel like it might have been something they did, and maybe it was something they did, but when you come into court as a plaintiff, you have the burden of proving it's not a criminal case. You don't have to prove it beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, but you have to prove that it's more likely than not something that they did. Just the fact that they were present doesn't make that. Now, he does tell you from June, he doesn't come back until July, but he does start texting you in July and telling you, hey, this isn't working, and you don't respond to a couple of those. Why is that?
Because I had a very busy schedule and I didn't know what day that I could have went out there. But when
you could respond and say, give me a few hours, I need to look at my schedule or something. You don't have to ignore him.
I think I responded and said I'll call you back or something like that.
You did, but
Yes.
then I see him reaching out to you again.
And then that's when he told me about the FPL bill.
Well, I know, but that's like several weeks later. I mean, look, that's at the end of the day, that's on you and not him. I don't think that's great service. But if he's not responding, call a different AC guy and try to figure out what the problem is. I think most people would do what you did and give a chance to this AC guy to fix it. But if it's never turning off, it's going to be a big bill.
Well, one of my other concerns was because that's what I constantly repeated to him, and he never addressed that issue. And he has the knowledge that, okay, if AC units aren't turning off, 1, 2, or 3 things could possibly cause that.
What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that could cause an AC unit not to turn off?
Mainly is because of the heat that we have in the middle of summer, because I explained to him because it's July.
No, but see, you set it at a certain temperature, and if everything's working right, it turns off when it gets to that temperature.
Correct.
Right. But if the temperature never changes, all right, even though the AC's going, I know it's hot, so I know it's not going to be in a minute, but, it's going to be in 2 weeks. That shouldn't be happening.
And that's when I reached out to him and I said, okay, we'll come back out and we'll check it. That's why when the second time we went out there, we found the issue that it was low on refrigerant. And we charged up with the Freon. And then once we charged up with the refrigerant, I even gave that to him at a discount.
At that time when you came back and you charged up the refrigerant, did you check the heating strips?
No, because there was an issue with the refrigerant, so we figured, okay, that was it, which is what he told you, where he said that, yes, he did feel a difference. It was cooling better. It was blowing stronger.
Right, but he had complained before that the thing wouldn't turn off.
And that's why we went back then. We checked. We went on the roof and we checked the refrigerant. And then we did find
Does that cause it not to turn off?
Yes, it will.
Because it won't cool?
Exactly.
All right, so after the refrigerant, did he communicate with you, hey, it's still not turning off?
Yes, he did. And then that's when I went back up. I scheduled with him because it's in the middle of the summer. It was extremely busy. So I scheduled with him to go out in, I think it was 2 or 3 days. I said, I think it was a Friday, and I told him I'll come out on Tuesday. And within that time, FPL went out. And then when FPL went out and said, okay, FPL said this, I was out there the next day. And that's where we had the whole conversation, and he told me to have a seat, and then I have a seat, and he pulled his chair in front of me and asked me what are we going to do about this bill, and he kept on saying that, oh, you're going to pay for the bill and all this kind of stuff, or do you want me to take you to court? And he went on my business social media page and said I broke the AC unit, and I didn't break the AC unit, and all that kind of stuff, and tried to slander my company's name.
Okay. You're suing for $973.86 in pain and suffering. Why not just hire a different AC guy and get it fixed? Like, what's the pain and suffering?
Well, can I kind of piggyback off what he was saying? Because
Yeah.
I think part of the issue is the time lapse.
I know, and he wants me you want me to hold it against him.
Well,
And I would like to say, well, if he's not responding, why don't you call someone else? That way the bill doesn't keep racking.
yes.
All right. I feel you, I do. Like, I understand, that's the same thing I would think when I take my car in to the mechanic and then they fix something and then the car still isn't working right and they say, well, now it's something else. Well, why didn't you just say that from the beginning? Well, I still fixed your thing, and so now you got to pay, I was hoping that would solve it. Now you got to pay for this because I'm going to fix this too. And then, I don't know who's right. Like, I'm just basically, he has a boat payment and I'm going to pay what he tells me to pay, right? And, so I understand the frustration, but I've got to have something more. I've got to have, oh, he damaged it. All right, then are they damaged? No. Your new guy comes in and says, I don't know what the problem was. I put him in there working fine. I just can't do it under these facts, and I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. Good luck, folks.
Both sides, hold on, please.
Well, the plaintiff tried. I mean, he did his homework. He did a little bit of everything to try and convince the judge that he should prevail here. He was suing for $1,500. But he did not get it. Mr. Quinn How do you feel right now? What are you thinking?
Well, I'm very disappointed. Ultimately, I had an issue. After he fixed the initial issue, a new one arose, and I did not even know about the new one for at least another month. But in the meantime, I constantly reminded him of what was going on incorrectly. He pretty much ignored what I said was going on. He never resolved the issue that I said was going on. He fixed everything but what I originally told him about. And that's what led to the issue that I had. But unfortunately, the judge did not recognize that it was no fault of my own, but an AC person that just did not address the issue that I told him about.
All right, good luck to you. All right, well, that's it for the plaintiff. He just did not convince the judge. Let's see what Mr. Carmack feels about it. You're the defendant, sir. How do you feel now? Do you think you did everything you could to help him?
Yes, I did. I did everything I could possibly could do.
Did you think that you might possibly be on the hook for this?
I don't think so. Because the thing is, if he would approach the situation differently, I probably would have been able to help him more. But because of the way everything played out, it was like, I can't help you anymore. I gave him discounts on work that was done. And I went out there numerous times to try to help him take care of the issue. And when FPL came and did the assessment of the energy usage, I went out there and I disconnected it free of charge. I didn't charge him anything, and I gave him discounts prior to that, and he just didn't appreciate it.
All righty, Harvey, what do you think?
Okay, Doug, one of the reasons why the plaintiff lost this case is because it's not enough just to prove that there was damage. You have to prove what the consequences of that damage would be. In this case, the plaintiff is essentially saying it caused his electric bills to soar. If you can't provide that nexus, that connection between whatever the defendant may have done and the damage caused to the plaintiff, well, the plaintiff then loses.
I understand that I can sue someone in either the state the loan took place in or the state they now live in. But if they legally did not change their address, can I still sue in their new home state?
The test for jurisdiction, normally jurisdiction for a loan between you and me, you can get sued in the state you reside in or live in, and you can get sued in a state that you do business in, or in a state that you have minimal contacts with for purposes of state law.
The idea is that behind jurisdiction is that's the right court.
Right.
Because we're
exactly.
Right. And so on a loan, the person yesterday also owed you the money. So the debt and the lateness is still happening there.
Right.
But
whether you officially changed your
normally
address,
you have to sue where the transaction took on a contract where a transaction actually took place.
Right.
But a loan is a little bit different. But go ahead.
Right. Judges in different states apply laws. Like if you have a loan that took place under Florida law, and then you end up filing a lawsuit in Georgia, a judge in Georgia is applying Florida law. Florida law. They do it all the time. So it's not like it absolutely has to happen in Florida.
Right.
So in this case, it's not going to be...
Yeah, it makes no difference that he didn't formally change his address.
Right. Some people can do that to avoid being subject to jurisdiction, or who knows, or to get served, avoid getting served, things like that.